Yeah. Hi, everyone. It's July the 13th, it's a Saturday, and I wanted to make um, this video because I've been getting a lot of emails that show up from very disturbed, traumatized, confused people. And I understand, in a sense, why they're reaching out to me. They hear an interview, they hear some of the concepts of what I'm saying, and they feel that I must be able to help them. That I have that I have that I have a solution for their deep suffering, and not really. And that's why I want to make this video, to kind of put into perspective some of the really foundational concepts way before you ever get to exit the cave ideas. I've tried in the past to respond to some of these mails, but generally um, they tend to get very angry with the response and say I'm belittling them or I'm not helping them. And I don't want to just ignore them, the emails either. That's not a good way to go. Someone is traumatized and obviously looking for help. And so I wanted to come up with a different presentation, you might say, so that some ideas around this could be a little more understood. I mean, in a sense, I can't help anyone in a state of years of suffering and trauma directly, right? I'm not a healer, or I'm not a magician. Yeah, I did spend time with Native Indian medicine people, but I wasn't really learning healing. They knew I was on a different path from any of that kind of work. And so I moved into totally different directions. But I wanted to lay down some foundational ideas. One of the foundational ideas is the understanding that this reality is suffering. Right? That's what it is. That's how it's been built. It's the key element as to what's going on here. One of the first problems is that a traumatized individual, someone who's going through a tremendous amount of suffering, particularly at a young age, which is when the matrix likes to really hammer the trauma possible, is a belief structure then gets created that the reasons it's happening is because it's my fault. Right? That's the key underlying principle that someone will be battling first off, is that it's my fault that it's happening. And 98% of the time, it's not. There are 2% of the time where we've actually truly done something where we literally did create a situation, but that's rare. Usually it's built right into the matrix. It's built right into the life script. It has nothing to do with you at all. And they like to throw out these ideas then, if something can't be directly linked to you through a story of your life, well, then it must be karma. It must be, this is what you did in a past life, and so that's why you're getting traumatized. And again, it's another fabulous way for the matrix to put the blame on you for what is actually the matrix responsibility itself. Now, as I've mentioned before, in time, what will happen is we will build an egoic structure around that. We will build an egoic structure around the trauma. We'll build an egoic structure around how it's my fault, how I'm a bad person. And now that will be projected again and again, and we'll create more and more and more of it. So now the creation process of it, you might say, yeah, now the person is creating their own suffering, but it's being created because of the original, deeper, older trauma that had nothing to do with you. And that's the karma. Karma is really just the mental projection going out in the world, which is, you might say, continuing to manifest the way you mentally see things. That's karma. It has nothing to do with previous lives or anything else. It just has to do with what are you projecting in the world, and generally what you're projecting in the world is what you've projected for the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And so it'll keep being the same. You're going to keep getting the same experience because you're projecting the same thing. That's karma. So, but it's not, in a sense, it's not your fault, right? It's like, that's how the initial traumas conditioned us. They conditioned the egoic mind and the projection tool a certain way. And so it's projecting things in the way that it projects. And we keep manifesting that over and over. So it requires a gigantic change, right? It's why you have to actually, the first step to anything is you have to clean up and heal the traumatized mindset. Because it's going to just keep, as long as it's in disturbed state, it's going to just keep creating disturbance. You can't go deeper into any, you really can't go into, like, for example, when I'm talking about exiting the cave or ending a reincarnation cycle, that cannot be done with a fragmented mind. It's actually, bizarrely, one of the good things about the egoic mind is the egoic mind won't let go. The personality structure won't let go if it's broken. If it's not whole, if it's not healed. It's actually a good thing, because if you have a real deep experience, a total realization of the way things actually are, the fragmented mental structure would just make things worse if you actually had that. That's happened to a few people where they've been in a fragmented state and then were doing things that actually put them in a place where they had an fairly ultimate realization, and it's not like that helped anything. It actually made things worse. So it's important to create this stable kind of place. And I know that a lot of people might say, well, you don't have much good to say about the New Age movement, which I don't. You don't have much good to say about spiritual traditions and therapy or whatnot. But actually I do, because those things are foundational steps in which you create not a perfected mind, but you create at least a mind that's relatively balanced. That's relatively calm. That's relatively grounded into the dream state. Then, with that place, now you can go forward. But until that's done, that's not going to happen for you. And I'll get to a moment, because I know what the question's coming from people, and I'll get to it in a moment. But a couple of other ideas first to just keep in mind with this, right? Which is one of the key realizations for me, which was really, really important, which I didn't fully accept until a few years ago. I fought this realization for 15 years. And that is the realization that the world will never improve. It's never going to get better. This reality is never going to get better. You can change the government, you can change the financial system, you can change anything you want. It's never going to get better, because it's not built to be better, right? It's built to be a place of trauma, a place of distraction, a place of distortion, a place of upside down world. That's what it is. It's not ever going to get better. But you can manage it differently. It can be packaged differently. It can be personally, on a one-by-one basis, it can become different. The trauma in a person's existence can alter. Like, a good example would be a traumatized dog, right? There's lots of these stories of the dog. I mean, it's in fear, it's in terror, it's shut down, and with a really good, caring person around to take the dog and look after it for a few months and give it some kindness and some help, all of a sudden, in 2 or 3 months, it becomes a fabulous dog again. It's become what it was before the trauma happened. And there are, tens of thousands of these stories of these dogs that have transformed and become fabulous friends. The difference is you can't magically transform all the dogs in the world. You can only transform one traumatized dog at a time going forward. And that's got to be the way you've got to think. You can't fix the world. You're fixing yourself first. And I don't want to say fix because that's not the right term for it. You're stabilizing yourself, or you're rebalancing yourself, you're unfragmenting yourself. From an unfragmented state, now you can move on. Because exiting the cave, I know people hear these interviews and it's very challenging because I talk for like 30 or 40 minutes or an hour or something, or I put out a small video. And it's easy in such a very short period of time for people to come up with all sorts of ideas of what they think I mean. Right? It's not the same as if someone who knew me and was spending time and we were friends and they were talking to me every day for, at the coffee shop for a couple of months. They would have a complete detail of everything I'm talking about and all the layers that I'm talking about. And they would see that exiting the cave is not an escape. Exiting the cave is not an escape from your suffering. And and I know a lot of people would hear this idea and they think, I can escape it all. And it's not an escape. It's not an escape. Right? And it's not a disassociation. It's not a denial of reality. Exiting the cave eventually becomes a direction that happens from a place of clear, balanced seeing as to what reality is, and more importantly, the work of self-definition to know that which you are, which is to eventually see that you're not the thing you see in the mirror every day. You are something else. You are something much deeper, much different. And that this is the vehicle that's being borrowed. Even then, it's not being borrowed. That's a poor term, because the thing that you are isn't even consciously borrowing it. The thing that you really are is asleep. Like I mentioned in a video before, that's what has to wake up. But it really only wakes up when the external character becomes somewhat grounded and balanced. And that's a huge part of the work, is just rebalancing. That's actually why my book, Falling for Truth, is really, really important. I consider it now. I've reread it recently, and there is so much foundational information in there that it's kind of like you can't really move to exiting the cave until you've, I think, grasped the material in Falling for Truth and started to apply that in your own life. But you can't read a book and think you've learned anything. You have to read books and then apply it personally. You have to take what you read and turn it into day-to-day existence. So I know the question that's coming, which is, you're someone who's in this troubled state. Well, where do I get this help? Where do I get the help I need to rebalance then this state? And that's not an easy question, because there's a whole lot of, if you just go on the internet, there will be a million healers promising you that they'll be able to fix you. And generally, I found that, 999,000 of them really can't. A few thousand can. A few thousand really do have these skills. Majority have very limited skills in what they can do. So how do you make a choice? How do you determine where you would even go? And the word I would use to look for, so if someone is looking for help in some way, great, look around. The word I would look for is integrity. Does the person you feel that you want to try doing some work with and seeing if they can begin the stabilization process, that's the word that they should embody in some manner, integrity. And it's a huge word, right? Because integrity covers all sorts of things, from honesty to a type of morality, a moral living, a type of courage, a type of clearness, a type of willingness to help other people when they can, an ability to use stillness as a part of their life, but certainly, honesty, courage. Those are words that fit so much into what the word integrity means. it's a much, of course, it's a huge word. It's a massive word, but that's what you should be looking for with someone you want to do some healing work with. There's of the interaction. This is what you want to look for in a real good healer to obtain some sort of balance, and it can take a while. It can take a while, like just because you can't just rush to somebody. And I was doing similar things when I was in the midst of my illness. When I was in the midst of my illness many years ago, and so I understand it. You get desperate, like you just get desperate because you're in so much pain. You're on the edge of the cliff, and you feel like you're going over. And you think you hope, right? You throw in hope. It's going to be this one. This one can do it. This one, and every time, nope, not them. No, not them. Nope, not them. Thankfully, none of the ones I've been seeing made anything worse. There's unfortunately some healers who really don't understand what they're doing, can actually create things and make them worse, which is why you really have to look into who you're working with. But thankfully, I did have a couple who, along the way, I knew from quite a long time ago and that I trusted. And they gave me a little bit of ability that I learned how to guide myself through the worst of it, the worst of the mess, how to just help track, because it's not like they waved a wand and fixed anything, right? We were able together to dig into linking points again, just like I said, linking points into the old traumatic layers, which became the karmic structure of continually repeating the pattern over and over and over again, creating it, projecting and creating it into reality. And they were able to help work to uncover where these things were. Yes, they did some energy things to help move the process along a little quicker than I would do all by myself. But the point is that I did a lot of the work along with them, that they just didn't wave a wand. That doesn't work that way. It requires those who can move us into ways where we find out how we do this healing work on ourselves, how we do the work to uncover what's back there and release particularly these ideas that it's my fault, right? That we get a glimpse of where the originating patterns actually come from, not us, and not even blaming it on another person, but blaming it on the entire structure that allows people / beings / whatever to operate the way that they do here. And once this release starts to happen, not because we deny it or because you could say disassociate, that's a big word where people just, literally move part of their consciousness away from their normal reality. So they block themselves off from the experience of anything. It's nothing like that. It's getting to a place where you start to get comfortable and you start to get okay with being willing to clearly dig into one's life and see what's really there, which is again why the recapitulation is so valuable. I mean, I don't think the work I did eventually with the healers that I did find many years ago would have worked as well without having gone through 2 full complete life recapitulations, because there was a lot of stuff that had already been seen and cleaned up and released from my life for my own work. So there were a lot of areas I knew I didn't have to go into anymore. That's been done. That's been cleaned. I understand that. I don't have problems with this person or this experience anymore. So it was limited where I was looking. So things could become more like a laser focus of where the attention needs to go in these areas. So all of these things plays a role. That's why I say falling for truth. And a lot of the things that are in there are literally important foundational steps to take someone to the place of exiting the cave. Like, nobody should read the new book I'm writing, right, which is coming out soon, Exit the Cave 2. Certainly nobody should read it without having read Exit the Cave 1, and they really shouldn't be reading it without having read Falling for Truth. Because it's almost like a trilogy of work. And the trilogy of work, just like any trilogy, you pick it up on book 3 and it's going to be, you're going to be lost. You have to have read it from the beginning. And in this case, you've had to been doing some of the work from the beginning. Not that anyone needs to agree with what I say fully or do any of the recommendations. Again, it's just a package of, here's what I've done, here's how my life went, here's the challenges I had, here's some of the ways I dealt with it. What can be applied to you? And that's really all I can do, right? So it's so challenging when I get the kind of email that I get, and there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do beyond saying, like, there's some things that I did, and there's some places I searched, and there's some ways that I tried to work with what I was dealing with. A lot of them did nothing. A lot of them had no response for me at all, but I did them. And some other things did seem to have some work, or maybe the things that I did that wasn't really working did work later on. They just worked 10 years after I did them. I don't know. I can't necessarily say what created the change. Just like when someone's working with a traumatized dog, you can't say 6 months later what was the one thing that changed the dog from where it was when you first met it to where it's become. It's a whole lot of small little things that all became part of a package that allowed the total transformation of where something was into what it's become. So again, the idea is that, right, exit the cave is not an escape from reality. It's not an escape from the world of suffering. It's a call to say there's something beyond. There's something much beyond, but you've got to get to the point where you can fully acknowledge the reality that exists as it exists, not the way we wish that it was, but the way that it really is. And to honestly look at the thing that we are and become, again, honest with the way this thing really is and really has been and has really been the way it's been structured over the course of our life. Yeah, okay, so I've had traumatic experiences which led me into all of the challenges and the illnesses and everything else, but a lot of people have had trauma way, way worse than me, right? Like really, really horrific stuff. And my stuff was hard enough to work through and to find help with and to find ways of going past it. And, I came close to death a few times in just trying to deal with it. And maybe I'm 5 out of 10 on the scale, and there's people that are 9 out of 10 on the scale. So I get that there's levels of it that are way worse than I've gone through, which is why I can't necessarily. There's another thing that some people might be useful in some of these states, which is working with an actual qualified trauma expert, someone who actually deals with trauma victims on a day-by-day basis. That's for someone who's chosen that life career. In that respect, I have a lot of respect for someone who's doing that, because it is really, really, it's important and it's really difficult work. And of course, there'll be a lot of, we'll call them non-successes, right? You'll see 10 people and 5 you'll have success with, and 5 for various reasons you won't. And that must be very challenging for someone working in that field, to know that they'll have just as many successes as they will non-successes. But the successes still have importance, right? There's still, you can't save every dog, and you can't fix the world to make it that the dogs never don't get treated the way they get treated here. But you can work on a one-by-one basis and do what you can to limit the number that the traumas are happening to. We can learn to limit and mitigate and alter and transform somewhat some of the suffering reality within our projected range, which can't fix the place. Can't fix it. It's doing exactly what it was structured to do. So when I say exit the cave and I say, I'm going home, I'm not going to be here anymore, it's not really an escape because I'm not leaving this place. It's the realization that I was never really here because I was tricked to be here consciously. And then again, as my book will show, what exactly gets tricked to be in here? Not what you think it is. We like to put all sorts of labels and ideas on who we think we are that has this trick played, and it's nothing like that at all. That's the explanation of the trick is a trick in itself. By the time the book comes out, maybe you guys will understand more of what I'm going to present. But I wanted to share this with you because I didn't feel there was any other way of. I'm hoping that this will be of value to a number of people who this kind of, we'll call it troubled mind it hits, it reaches, that someone can see like, okay, there's a transformation that needs to occur, and it's not my fault that it needs to occur, but that doesn't mean it still doesn't. If I want to eventually be able to go further and farther beyond, you've got to start with where you are. You've got to start at the place you actually exist. You can't project yourself somewhere in the future and pretend you're somewhere else. You have to see where you are, honestly. And then, like I say, it's find some people who can help that have integrity. They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to do everything. You just have to feel like they're going to be honest with you, and they're going to share whatever little they have to share, and find ways that you can use it in your own life. So don't go looking for a magic wand. Look for those that can give you some understanding based on their own knowledge. And like I say, this is not my field, right? My field is the next stages after this. My field is what happens later on. What happens after all this is done, which is why I have very little I can ever share to anyone, because that's not my field. I have a lot of empathy for the creatures of the world, and empathy for myself for what this creature went through. But like I didn't fix it myself. I needed assistance from others who had tools that I didn't have, who had seeings that I didn't have. So I hope this will be of value to some people. Don't come to exiting the cave material thinking you're going to escape your reality, think you're going to escape this world, thinking you're going to just disappear and go to some wonderful, higher, happy, heavenly place. That's all trap, right? That's all trap. It's all trying to make it seem like the pain and the suffering has some value to your greater overall trend, to your greater overall journey. And no, it's just creating suffering so that you will develop a egoic mind that'll project and stick you within the trauma. But you have to work your way out. You have to work your way out on a step-by-step basis. It's like you got to do step 1 and step 2. If you're caught in quicksand, there's a 5-step process of how you get out of the quicksand, and you can't do step 4 until you've done step 1, right? I think step 1 is stop struggling, right? That if you struggle, the quicksand will take you down. So you have to kind of like amazingly, like immediately let go of the fear of the situation and immediately trigger on I may be wrong on this, right? I haven't like checked the whole quicksand thing, but I think it's something like that. Step 1 is you stop the struggling, and then I don't remember. I think step 2 is you change your angle so that you're more in a swimming position. There's a whole lot of things. But there's a step-by-step method of how you do it. And if you know the step-by-step method, you know, okay, you do step 1 first, and then once step 1 is done, now we go to step 2, now we go to step 3, now we go to step 4. It's the same with transforming one who's come out of a very traumatized existence or is in a traumatized existence. It's a step-by-step process. And it's beginning to understand what step are you in, right? What step are you in now? So where can you go to get help with that step? You don't need help for step 4 when you're at step 2, right? It's like step 2 requires one kind of help and guidance and assistance, and step 4 requires a different kind of guidance, and step 8 requires a different kind of guidance. And that's, like I say, I'm just sharing when I was in that really painful, very sick, ill place years ago. You don't think clearly because you're so, you're sometimes I was just like grasping at straws. This. I mean, I probably saw 50 different healers of every possible thing you can think of, right? From doctors to, like, from the Western medical system to acupuncturists, to shamans, to energy healers, to herbalists, to, I mean, everybody. Anybody who I thought had a possibility, I wound up seeing them. I spent a massive amount of money, like a massive amount of money, seeing another one, with almost nothing ever happening. 50 different diagnoses, 50 different suggestions, and none of them worked. Only a couple began to really see through what was some bits of what was really going on. But it took a combination, like I say, of finding the combination of the right ones who could unlock what was within, where the real issues were. And once the real underlying issues could be brought out and discovered and can actually be worked on and transformed, then it actually changes. Then it will actually change. And then it will, and you're doing it, right? I can say that these people helped me, and they did, but they did like half the work. I did the other half. There's a whole lot of work I had to do myself. And writing the books and doing all these videos, for me, that was part of the process of finishing all the things that had to be done over several years. This is part of the complete transformative package, is doing what I'm doing right now. So anyway, that came out of the videos from the emails that have come in. And I hope this, my idea is that hopefully this is of value, and that should any of these arrive from other sources, I can bring you to this video, and that hopefully this will give you some direction and some ideas of what you need to do next, because unfortunately I can't tell anyone what to do. I can, even with exiting the cave, I'm just giving some personal I'm not even necessarily recommendations. I'm just sharing my story and my ideas and things I've done. Everybody has to make their own decisions and find their own way out of their own personal quicksand. And when you know that it's an escape, that's not really an escape. The whole process and its totality might make a bit more sense to you. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Yeah, I hope this is useful. And we'll just see how our world plays out. Do your best to remain clear, remain rooted, grounded, and in all facets of your life, not just in looking for healers. Find people who embody integrity. It's hard to find now, but there are those out there who embodies integrity. Those are the ones you want to spend your time with. Those are the ones that will be. And on the flip side, how can you become, more importantly, this is how I'll end this, more importantly, how do you become a creature that embodies integrity yourself? How do you work to find all of those key elements that make up what you feel integrity is? How do you become those yourself? And the more you become that, the more you'll probably find others with a similar integrity, the ones you really want to have as your friends. Best wishes out there, everybody. We'll catch up with you guys next month. Cheers.